slower at hiking, and some people can get to the top a little faster.
Nice. Anybody else? How are hiking and teaching alike?
I was thinking about like the different resources you need at hiking for like different tasks. So like if you're crossing a river or something, like some people need poles or certain types of boots. Or if it's like a long hike, you need certain kinds of snacks and things like that. So I was thinking like depending on the task, like similar with what you're teaching, you need different kinds of resources to fit your needs.
Cool. Anybody else?
I was thinking of like the different trails and how like to reach the same destination, not everybody will have the same way of getting there.
They'll have different ways of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Other thoughts? How many folks, when you're hiking, you have a set destination, you know where you're going? And people just, some of us do, some of us just get out and walk in wherever we're going to go, right? Okay. How do you know that maybe you're not worried about this, but anybody, what do you do to not get lost?
You might use a map of some sort.
I use a map. Okay.
Ties into the curriculum mapping, I'm guessing, of the readings.
Maybe so. So even if you've got the map, you might have this map that sort of represents what the journey's supposed to look like. How do you know if you're still with it?
Do you use a compass?
I use a compass, right?
There are like trail markers on like the trees.
So there are ways to tell along the way, right?
Mm.
You didn't get too far. All right. All right. It was a little bit of a cheesy analogy, but I think you got it right. So, so those things all help, and at the same time, like y'all said, people need different things, right? To make sure they can even do the hike. It may or may not be a concern about getting to the end, but you know, folks are going to take their individual time to get there, right? So there's different resources needed and so forth. The map does not tell you that, right? But you can use that map maybe to make judgments about how am I doing, right? How should I provision myself differently for this, right? It's at least just a reference point, right? Like I said, cheesy analogy, but it's a way to start. So let me share with you what we're going to be doing tonight. First was our opening. We're going to go over our working agreements in a sec, take care of a little bit of business, and talk a little bit about some common themes from your analyses of the mission statements. Then talk some about the readings that you did on inclusive schools, making schools work for all kids. Curriculum maps. They provide consistency, some support, but might they also be a way of controlling things? We'll look at some examples of that curriculum controversy assignment, so you have an idea of how other folks have done it in the past and how you might approach it, okay? And then we'll take questions. And then we'll just preview some of the readings coming up as well as you flip it, okay? So that's all that. Remember these? These are our working agreements. Okay, we asked for, these are the things that work best for us as we decided. Gerardo, this is your first look at these. I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself a little bit. But also I want you to take a look at these. These are things that we agreed to all as a group so far in terms of what works best for us, right, as learners or as participants in a class. Some of these are requests of me, right, as an instructor, like I can do these things to help everybody. And some of these are things that we will all agree to do. Okay. And the chief idea here is that we're all holding each other responsible for these things. Like, this is not a top-down thing from me to hold everybody else responsible for it. So, hands-on work in class, stepping up and stepping. So, hands-on work in class be up to me, perhaps, in some ways, to provide it. There are also times when you're going to be leading class or leading a small group, right? And it assumes that everybody's going to get involved with it, right? Step up, step back is this idea of if you're a quiet person, sometimes we can ask you to step up. If you're somebody who tends to be very present in a conversation, maybe sometimes you need to step back to make room for everybody else. What we say here stays here in terms of confidentiality, right? You need to be, and some of you revealed some interesting stuff, for example, in your mission statements. This is a confidential space. We can talk about stuff we need to. You guys would like me to post things in a timely way, taking care of yourself. I've got a cold, so I've got my water right here. That's going to be me partly taking care of myself. Also, Zoom is taking care of all of you because you don't have to be around me in my germy self tonight, right? It's not going to come across the internet. But if you need to step out, step out. Excuse me. You guys like feedback on your work. You want active discussions and PowerPoint notes. Excuse me, I'm going to mute myself for a sec. But while I do that, anybody wants to chime in with anything that they would want to change about these working agreements, or Gerardo, you in particular, if there's anything you want to add that has worked for you well, either in your classes as a teacher or in things that you want us to do, you know, that you've noticed as a student too.
Not really. I mean, the past few classes you guys have had have been pretty organized. So I think all the points made on the PowerPoint are pretty good so far.
Dr. Bornstein, you're muted.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll all introduce ourselves here, please. And Gerardo, let's start with you because you're a little new to the group. Just tell us where you're at in your career right now, right? And for each of us, where you're at and how you expect this course to kind of help you develop, okay?
So I currently work at Science Park High School. I am a chemistry teacher, but I currently teach AP chemistry, organic chemistry, and biology. I'm hoping all these courses help me get to my goal, which is becoming an athletic director, which is, you know, a little different than everyone else in the class, but yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of go across the screen. I think the screen that I have in front of me may not be the same order as you have, so I'll just call you guys out and you can introduce each other yourself, right? Sarah?
Hi. Oh, we're doing like a whole full
Just so
reintroduction.
Gerardo knows who you are. I know who you are, but he doesn't know who you are. So
Oh, okay. I'm Sarah. Is there anything like specific I should say?
yeah, where are you in your development here, and how do you think this course will help you?
Okay. I work right now at a special ed preschool in my town, and then I'm currently in my second year of the MA Plus certification program for school psychology. So I think this class would be helpful in kind of gaining a better understanding of like what teachers and other administrators in the building have to deal with, as well as the school psychologist.
Thank you. Kirsten?
I'm Kirsten. I'm currently a paraprofessional working in a 2nd through 5th grade classroom. I am also in the second year of the MA Plus for school psych, And I'm hoping that this class also just kind of introduces me to the different roles that the school has and the different curriculum environments and stuff like that that kind of come together to make the school function and run.
Thanks. Catherine.
I'm Catherine. I am currently working as a teacher's aide in a high school classroom for students with autism, and I'm also in the second year of the Master's Plus Certification Program. And I'm hoping this class allows me to get a better perspective of what teachers and other administrators in the schools have to deal with on a daily basis.
Thanks. Theo.
I'm Theo. I'm also in the second year. I currently work at a doctor's office, so this class helps me get at the insight that I need because I don't work with children. I don't work in the school system at all. So this lets me see kind of what I'm getting into for next year.
Thank you. Courtney.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I currently work as a substitute for Toms River School District, so I do K through 12. I'm also in my second year of the Master's in CERT program for school psych. And what I'm hoping to gain from this class is just like some more insight into the development of curriculum and a better understanding of teacher expectations to help with like collaboration and consultation.
Thank you. Savannah?
Hi, I'm Savannah. I'm also in the MA plus school psychology. I currently work at a public preschool for kids with varying and multiple disabilities. And from this course, I would kind of like to just gain further knowledge on how the different roles, like the principal, the admin, school psych, teachers, kind of work together as a team to benefit the students.
Thanks. Brittany?
Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm also a second year student in the Master's Plus Certification Program. I work as a paraprofessional in a preschool as well, similar to Savannah, with multiple disabilities. And I've never had like any education type course, so I'm just kind of curious to see that approach with, you know, developing curriculum and whatnot, and all the different moving parts there are with which affects school psychologists.
Thank you. Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm currently also a second year in my master's program for school psychology. I'm not currently I'm not working at a school, which is why I feel like this course really does give me great insight into how the school system works. And hopefully it'll help me do my job better when I collaborate with teachers and have a better understanding of how, you know, what's expected of them and what they need to do and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Selena.
Hi, I'm Selena. I'm also in the second year of the Master's in Certification Program in School Psychology. I currently work as a teacher aide in a multiple disability classroom from grades 2nd through 5th. And this is my first curriculum classroom, so I'm just hoping to learn more about curriculum and the different roles that administrators have.
Thanks. Eunice?
Hi, I'm Eunice. I'm also in the second year of the School Psych Master's Plus Certification Program, and I'm hoping that this course will teach me of the inner workings of schools past the classroom setting.
Thank you. Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm also a second year in the Master's in CERT. I'm currently working before care and after care in Oakland. I'm hoping to gain from this course is a better understanding of how educational frameworks are established and the decisions that go into that.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. If you haven't figured it by now, it's when we're doing our class discussions, it's really probably visually best for you to be in gallery view, right, as opposed to speaker view, because when you're in speaker view, you just get a ribbon across the top, and whoever's making the most noise shows up big on your screen. Right? So just a little note about that. All right, so moving on. We got a lot to do tonight, so I'm going to kind of keep it moving. Right? A little business to take care of. Okay. First off, if you're doing Zoom through your browser right now, make sure that you can allow pop-ups. Okay. I was trying to figure out why a couple of us didn't get into breakout rooms last time, and it might be that the browser didn't allow pop-ups. So just take a minute and check for that right now. Make sure that you can, because I think that when we go into breakout rooms, you get a little note that says you are about to go into a breakout room, right? And click here. So that might be classified as a pop-up by your browser. So just take a second and look for that. I'll just pause the recording here for a second. Okay. All right, next thing. APA style manual. This came up in almost every assignment that got turned in on the last one. Some folks did the cover as we asked, and some didn't. And most folks needed to be sure to cite, like when you're quoting from the district website on something, you need to cite that. Okay, so honest to God, I looked up how to do citations again today, right? Just to check some things, right? I don't expect anybody here to be an expert. I don't expect you to go buy the manual, but I do want you to use it. In the course documents section on Blackboard, there are samples and there's a link. In fact, they just updated that link the other day, and it has an APA citation generator. So you put in the information and it will generate the appropriate citation format. So any questions about those two things? All right. So in the, I saw this theme kind of running through all of your mission statement analyses, which was this interesting comparison between the rhetoric that was composed in that thing and the reality of it. It was really interesting to me that a number of you wrote about different things. One thing was that there were mission statements where nobody could tell you what was in that mission statement, and it was clearly disconnected from what was going on in that school. Like, you would be hard-pressed to find evidence of that mission statement in the life of the school. Several of you wrote about that. But several of you also wrote about, yeah, nobody really could tell me what the mission statement is, but actually they are living it. They're walking that walk, even if they couldn't talk the talk. Like, they couldn't tell you what was in it, but it does seem to be happening, right? And so I just thought it'd be interesting for you all to have that conversation with each other around that. Like, was that surprising to you? What was there? What was your discovery sort of as you went through this process? So several of you interviewed folks, and several of you are in school. So it was an interesting thing to see. I saw a conversation across papers, and I just wanted you guys to have that conversation amongst each other. So I'm going to unmute everybody. And here's my question to you. What were the aha moments for you in doing this assignment? What were the things that were a little surprising that you gained a little bit of insight?
When I talked to my principal about it, he made it super clear that we don't have a mission statement so much as an intent. And he was like super adamant the verbiage was noted. So I didn't really go into it with him, but I just thought that was interesting and worth sharing.
Anybody else? Nah, it wasn't that interesting, Dr. Borstein. There was no real aha moment. No, I mean, I did it because you asked me to do it, but it wasn't that interesting. Go ahead, Dorothy.
At Science Park, so it's a blue ribbon school, and it's in Newark, but the level of the school it's pretty high in comparison to everyone else in Newark and really all the schools around in New Jersey. But their mission statement was strictly based on rigor, like how difficult we really make it here for the students or how much content they'll really get. But that was it. There was nothing else there. And to me, that was kind of surprising because I looked at a few more mission statements from other schools, and a lot of them mention about, you know, the social side of learning, their emotional needs and things like that for the students. But for us, it's strictly based on, I mean, it's going to be difficult and, you know, you're going to be successful. That's really all it's about.
Somebody who was in the Chathams, because that was it, and there was that's a very clear contrast with what was going on, right? Because their intentions were all about emotional well-being.
Yeah, I think it was split. There were like 6 principals, and 3 of them were academic, and 3 of them were the social emotional. And I do, having been an employee there for the past 3 years, do believe they really strive to you know, meet that goal of the social emotional learning.
Yeah, anybody have any thoughts about, you saw that on the slide I showed you, that there was a canyon there, right? So indicating the gulf between rhetoric and reality. Anybody have any thoughts in your conversations about why that gulf might happen?
I felt like there's obstacles all the time. So even though you have like this mission statement, this goal that you want to, you know, orient toward, sometimes it's harder than it seems because there are obstacles, you know, such as like, you know, the community's poor, or, you know, there's just a lot of violence or something like that.
So it's an aspiration that is not taking account of the reality that people are living in?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I interviewed you as well, and that was one of the things that like stuck out to me, especially like when you were talking about going into the community and how it was like, well, my kids are spread out throughout the entire city. I really can't do that. Whereas the mission statement was like, it was geared to that.
And I wonder, I don't think there was anybody, like I tried to reach out to my community, right? At least in developing the mission statement. So a couple Syracuse. And I tried. I had limited success, but I tried. But I don't think there was any other school that indicated that there were multiple authors for that mission statement, right? Like it was all, I don't know, somebody wrote that thing. I don't know, maybe it was the principal. I mean, maybe it was the school. I don't know. Somebody wrote it, right? But it sure wasn't me, and it sure wasn't us. It's not our mission. It's a mission that was imposed upon us, right, by somebody else. And you know, it's like none of us was around to write the Bible. It's a mission statement for some people, right? And people accept that. So it doesn't mean that people have to be the authors of their mission and their vision. But you could see that it could be, in the case of the school, nobody's trying to change the way you're trying to get your school to work well. You know, it would be helpful to really engage the community and at least checking. So even if I wasn't able to reach everybody in drafting it, I sure tried to make sure that I reached everybody and validated it. Saying, does this work? Does this look like our school? Is this something we could really try? And it did. So that was it. All right, we're going to move on. We got a lot to do. Coming back. I wanted to share with you, so you did these readings from Khalifa and from so forth on inclusive schooling and making culturally responsive schooling. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this graphic I'm about to share with you, but I think it's interesting to you, and I want to get your thoughts about what you're seeing in your schools and what are the kinds of schools that you want to help to build. Okay. Has anybody ever seen this graphic before? Does this look familiar to anyone? Let me talk you through it a little bit. So you see there's different colored dots, right? And there's circles, right? The dots are supposed to represent kids. The circle is supposed to represent either a classroom or a school, but probably a classroom within a school, right? And the different ways you can do it. One of the things you notice just about the dots, just to start with, just the dots. I'm not even talking about the arrangement of the dots, just the dots themselves.
Different colors.
Different colors, okay? What else? I can't quite see everybody, so just call right out, okay?
There's less of the multicolored circles than the green ones.
Okay, there's more green dots than any other kind of dots, okay? What else?
They're all the same size.
They're all the same size, okay, good. And there are a few dots, like there's no singular colored dot, right? Like there's no dot that's only one of itself, right? And so now when you can think of those as the ways in which the schools label kids, right? Green dots are what labels are kids who tend to be labeled as the normal kids, right? And they, in this different set of constellations, they're the people who define the gen ed classroom, by and large, right? You know it's always going to have the green dot kids, and most schools talk about those as the normal kids. And then, you know, the different colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges, and the blues, they'll tend to be the different ways the schools label kids, like English language learners, or students with disabilities, or gifted and talented, or different ways of doing it, or different kinds of disability. And so these different models, right, are the kinds of things that you tend to see. You tend to see exclusion, that school's not dealing with those kids at all. They're just out there on their own, right? Segregation, we'll put those kids who are not the normal kids, right? They're abnormal kids in some fashion, somewhere else. They're still in our school, but they're in a lesser space, smaller space, somewhere else, probably down the hall, another wing, something like that. You may integrate those kids by having them in the classroom, but they're really still self-contained unto themselves, right? So maybe they're at a table at the back of the class, as opposed to an inclusive environment, right? In which you can't. It's a little harder to tell who everybody is and where everybody is, right? That's an inclusive environment. So those are the kinds of structures, right, that we tend to see in schools, and New Jersey in particular does a ton of this. Right? Whoops. They do a ton of the segregation system. So there's a couple people here who are in multiple disability self-contained classrooms, right? That's this one right here, right? Or an LD classroom or a resource room, right? This is when the support teacher comes into the classroom, but they're only teaching those kids right there, right? They're not working with everybody. And this is the situation where it's a little hard to distinguish. And if you got two teachers in that classroom, everybody's teaching everybody, right? We do know for sure that inclusion works best, right? They've studied inclusion done. Did we talk about this last time? Briefly. Inclusion done well, and inclusion done badly, and inclusion done so-so. If they've looked at all of those different studies across the whole country, right, and when you put them all together, right, the best option for kids with disabilities in particular is inclusion, no doubt. Even when including doing it badly, right? The other thing that they found out is that, let me back up a second. I don't mean to say that inclusion done badly is good for kids with disabilities. That's not right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you take the average of all of it, doing it well, doing it so-so, and doing it badly. It is what's best for people with disability. And the other thing we know is it is not bad for everybody else. It does not hurt them. And those are the twin arguments you hear all the time, right? Well, we're going to send them down the hall because that's where they have the services they need, right? They can help you down there, honey. You'll be fine, right? And they also hear, but you know, I just don't have the resources because if I can't, I mean, I'm not going to be able to deal with my regular kids. Those kids are going to be taking up all my time. It's going to hurt the other kids. That's that way of thinking of kids who are English language learners or kids with disabilities and so forth as somehow kind of infecting the classroom and making it worse for everybody else. It's just not true, right? But overall, it is better. That doesn't mean it's easy, right? It's hard work to make it work right, but it does work, and it does work better, right? When the kids are in those segregated spaces, they never do catch up. They never do catch up with regular classes. It just doesn't work. So I wanted to kind of share that graphic with you. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of curricular space in this course to get into that, but you'll see that we'll be dealing with those concepts more in other areas as we get into the curriculum. So I want to share that with you. But tonight, what we're going to be doing is looking at curriculum mapping a fair amount, okay? And so here comes the hands-on portion of our evening, okay? Or one hands-on portion of our evening. I'm going to be putting you guys into groups, and I'm going to ask you to spend some time digging into the Hackensack curriculum maps. Hackensack has put them online for us. I'll show you what it looks like, and I'm going to send you there in a minute. Okay. They have put all of their curriculum areas online, and if you go into any one of them, they have a Google Drive folder with it. You'll see that, for example, the K4, 912, and 5.8 curriculum maps are there. Open it up. And we have bilingual grade 1 English language arts, grade 1 English language arts, the addendum to the grade 3 ELA, okay? What I'm going to ask you to do, I'm just going to give you the link to the original drive, okay? And ask you to go in and explore one curriculum map, just so you can get a feel for what it looks like, right? Because you probably haven't seen them before, I would guess, right? Like you've been reading about them in well, Gerardo, you've seen them. You've seen a bunch, but you might be interested, you know, you may want to go and see what another district is doing in your same area, right? And see what it does and what it doesn't do. So here's the structure for this activity. I'm going to ask you to ask yourself these questions. So you're going to need to jot these questions down. You're going to lose this screen a little bit, okay? What's the map good for? Like, what is this thing good for? What are we doing with this? What's it for? What does it help us do? Okay. Who is supported by this? Who would be helped by this curriculum map? Because you see that, for example, that curriculum guide from Hackensack, that's out there for everybody. I mean, I don't have any special access to that. That's a public link. But why? But it's probably more for people in the school. Who's it good for? Who's it best for? What is it useful for? Right? And who? Now, Gerardo, I'd like you to think about this in terms of, as a supervisor, how would you use it? And everybody else who wants to be a school psychologist, how would you use this thing as a psychologist? If you were in Hackensack, or if you had a district that had this, how would you use it? Okay. And then, if you can, think about how would it be misused? What are some of the negative consequences, maybe unintended negative consequences of this thing, right? But that might be a little bit hard for you to think about, but just give it a shot, okay? We're going to do it in this structure. It's going to take quite a while. I'm going to ask you to explore on your own for about 15 minutes, okay? I'm going to put you into pairs for 10 minutes to talk about how you answered those questions. And then I'm going to bring everybody back to the full class for about 20 minutes, okay? Is that clear? Let me stop the share here for a second. So those 4 questions, 15 minutes on your own, 10 minutes with a partner, okay? 20 minutes for us all together. So what is that? 45 minutes altogether we're going to be doing, okay? I'm going to send you the link right now. Hold on one sec. So it'll show up in your chat area. And all you have to do is click on it and it'll take you to it, okay? Everybody got that for now? All right. I'm going to just pause the recording now, but I'll stay here if you have questions. And then when it's time to move into groups, I will be sending you into, I'll give you some time, but I will send you into those groups, okay? But for now, I'm going to leave this open like this, so that if you have questions and you want to come back to me, I'm right here, okay? Give me a thumbs up if you got everything you need. All right, don't log out on me. Stick around. Okay, I'll be here. So go explore. All right. So it looks like this room is, yep, Anthony, and I shouldn't be in the room. There we go.
So I looked at the gifted, I looked at 2. I looked at the gifted one, and then I also looked at the dance one.
Okay.
So what I thought it was like good for was, it seems like it was pretty good for explaining exactly how the class should run and what topics are going to be covered in like X amount of time, and stuff like that. I thought that both the students and teachers would be supported by it, because it well, first it organizes the teachers to stay like on that topic that they're supposed to be on, but then it also helps the students, because the teachers can kind of give them then a guideline of like, this is what we're going to be doing on these days and stuff like that. For as a school psychologist to use it, I feel like it might be beneficial to use when like mapping out different interventions you might be using with different students, and like mapping out a social emotional curriculum. And then as far as negatives and like misuses, I feel like someone just like might not follow up with the map the way that they're supposed to, or like say like an administrator is looking over your map, you like might lie on your map to make it seem like you're doing something that you're not actually going to touch upon. So that was my thoughts.
I looked at the kindergarten math and then briefly at the science one as well. I feel overall that it was good for like.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, but I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, so it's a really good point.
Yeah. And that like having that substitute is like a two-sided sword, because like it could help because it could guide a substitute, but at the same time that can like kind of completely derail the momentum the teacher had when the substitute steps in and tries to take over that part of the math.
Yeah, that's true. Especially because it's so specific, like how many days or classes. But it was, like I didn't realize how scientifically broken down it was until I saw that. So, you know.
Yeah.
I guess. So yeah, back to the first one. I know we like jumped at number 4.
Yeah.
What's this good for? I feel like everyone benefits just because it gives them like such clear direction and guidelines to follow. Primarily, I feel like it's good for teachers as long as they don't feel overwhelmed by how much they need to accomplish like in a set amount of time.
Yeah, I thought it was good for parents, because I know like my parents were super involved because my mom's a teacher with my education. So I think they would have loved, or my mom would have loved to look at like what we're supposed to be learning throughout the year. And like, I like that it explains why they're learning that. And when I was shadowing a school psychologist, like
what I thought, and what did you say? Who is supported by this?
I wrote that so like the one that I specifically looked at was the bilingual student one. So I thought that it's, I guess, helpful that they have it available so parents can see what their child is expected to learn during each, what do you call them? Like each small timeline that they have there written down. So I think it's that's helpful for the parents. And
I can see why that would be important for bilingual kids, especially. Yeah.
And also like for the teachers, like it's good for them to see like what's expected of them to teach each student, I guess, or the classrooms.
Yeah, I also said, I think it helps teach.
Like gen ed students.
Students, okay. What I saw was a little different because I didn't really see any plans particular to special education, but I did see plans for bilingual students and maybe like ESL students. Sorry.
That's okay.
Let me see.
So like while you're looking for that, so like my accommodations for students in special ed was just like extra time for assigned tasks, like communication system between home, like buddying students up. And I feel like that's kind of difficult to really accommodate students in art, especially because they only get so much time in elementary school to do those things. So like I feel like they end up like hitting a lot of barriers moving on to like more complex.
As a guide, not so much like to rate them, because their rating pretty much comes from like how they deliver the lesson itself.
Okay. So like, who is supported by it? I thought it was mainly like teachers and parents, but once again, I only had the first page, so it was kind of hard.
I think the supervisor as well, because it's not, it has, for example, the Hackensack one, it actually has resources there, so that when a teacher turns around and says, oh, I didn't know what I could do for this lesson, and you say, well, it's right there. I mean, it's nicely set up, and actually Hackensack doesn't give you as many resources as Newark does, but Newark gives you like worksheets and websites and videos, so it's like, it's all there. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know what I was supposed to do for that unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, like, you know, if we have parents looking at this and they're seeing, well, why are these students getting this, but my student isn't getting that?
Yeah, and then it could create a whole thing of like, okay, well, I'm going to try to get my student or like my child X, Y, and Z accommodations, even though they might not necessarily need them, but because the parents might feel that it might help them get better grades, that could create a whole slew of other issues.
Yeah.
But then also, like, as a school psychologist, and like, or even but then you could look at it on the flip side of the parent of a student who is classified. They could check to see like, oh, maybe my student or like my child is not getting the services listed in this curriculum map, and then that would also allow them to go to the school psychologist or go to the teacher and say, like, hey, it's listed here that my kid is supposed to be getting these accommodations in class and it doesn't seem like they are. How could we work together to figure that out?
Yeah, but then I also feel like it leaves a gap for like parents who are uneducated to kind of fall in these pit holes of like the lingo used and the different numbers that it might be difficult for them to understand.
Exactly. So like if you're an educated parent who knows your rights, knows your child's rights, and the responsibility of the school, is very helpful. But if either you're uneducated or like, let's say you don't even know English, because from what I've gathered, all these are only available in English, then like you're kind of.
Hi.
Hello.
We're done. Are you guys done?
Yeah, we kind of finished up.
Who did you decide was sort of best supported by that document?
What was
What
best
was that?
supported?
Yeah. Like Sarah, I heard you were doing the dance and gifted and talented, but Savannah, I popped out before I heard what area you looked at. Oh, kindergarten.
Kindergarten, yes. I looked at the kindergarten math and then briefly at the science, but I looked more at the math.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I kind of felt that all of them, I feel like a lot of people, like the teachers and students, but I feel like it really supports the students more because it provides that clear like guideline for them where it's more consistency across all staff rather than a student being in a particular classroom with certain like teaching style or certain guidelines or activities where another kindergarten student with a different teacher may be on a whole different track. So I feel like it really helps provide consistency for all the kindergartens. So when they switch their like students up for the first grade and the years above, it's more consistent.
So it leads to that consistency vertically, and also if for whatever reason I'm leaving this school and going to that school, right? If my family has to move, then I have a reasonable expectation that we'll be basically in the same place.
Yes.
As where we just were.
Can you say that though with like complete certainty, like going between schools? Because I feel like I saw with my own niece, like she used to go to a different district in my county and like was doing amazing in school, and she was in first grade. And then like last year when she moved into my town, she started going to my district, which is like known to be better than the district she was in, and all of a sudden they were saying, oh, she's so far behind and needed to get so many like resources. So like is curriculum mapping something that could kind of bridge that gap?
I mean, across districts? See, this is all in a district. I mean, it can help, but I think you raised a good point, right? There's what's on paper, and then there's the reality of how it's done.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's actually bring that question to our larger conversation. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to pop out. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Man, this is really gonna suck. Let's see, exam is divided into two parts: the morning and afternoon. I'll answer a general question and integrate information.
What is bipolar disorder and how is it different from general mood swings? Oh God. Like I can answer that, but I don't know what they're looking for.
Are you guys looking at a curriculum map, or are you looking at something else here?
Oh, sorry, we're looking at an email from another professor. Sorry, but we discussed everything. Oh yeah, no, it's still psychology related.
All right, we're going to be popping back into the other room in just a second. Okay?
Perfect. Yeah, we answered all four. We feel pretty good about our answers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be here in a minute.
Um,
There we go. I heard of a really bunch of really interesting conversations. Tell us what you thought this thing was good for. I heard words like consistency out there. What else? What else seemed important to you?
I feel like guideline is an appropriate word.
Okay, it's got what's it guiding?
Where the teacher should be when, like throughout the school year, and kind of guiding the students, and then the school psychologist can know if that child's able to keep up with that.
Okay, right. So if we're having this discussion about a fourth grader in November, you have a sense of, okay, yeah, if they're here and this is what the curriculum is doing, that's a map, right? So that's like those guideposts we talked about. Right? That's helpful. What else we got?
I think I also like accountability on the teachers to make sure that they're reaching all the topics that the school has deemed important for their curriculum.
Okay. So accountability. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I said it was just to kind of make sure that the right skills or concepts are being taught at like the appropriate time, and also like to ensure there's no overlapping. So like if you're in fifth grade and then you go to sixth grade and you learn the same thing, that's not good either.
It's like, man, we just did that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. That's helpful.
I think it shows evidence for when if a parent or someone outside of the school question what's going on in classrooms, or why decisions are being that we pointed towards that document, and it shows how well thought out those decisions were.
Okay. So if somebody wants to, okay, so what's actually going on down at that school? Say, well, here's what we're teaching, right? Somebody else had an interesting sort of another take on that, right? I heard a discussion around, well, these were all written in English, but so what does that do for other families? Who talk about that?
Over here, I know me and Kirsten were talking about that, how this could be an excellent resource for parents who know their rights, know their child's rights, and what to expect from the schools. But let's say you have a child with, I guess, like any sort of like special needs, or like the 504, and they're either uneducated, don't know where to find these resources, or don't speak English, then they're at a loss, because if their child isn't getting the services that this curriculum map is saying that they're supposed to be getting, they're not able to know what services their child is supposed to be getting for this specific section of the curriculum in whatever class it's in.
Right. So it is empowering some, but it may not be equal access for everybody, right? Great. And as I heard you guys talking about who is supported by this in general, right? I heard teachers, for the reasons you guys were just stating, we know where to be, what to be doing. I heard some discussion, I think it was Brittany and Sarah, no, Brittany, who was your partner?
Anthony.
Oh yeah, about around kids being, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting my conversation. Somebody was looking at a curriculum and realizing, well, if my kid had to move classrooms.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, yeah.
I got it. It was Savannah and Sarah. So if my kid is moving classrooms, and maybe we moved across town.
Yeah.
Right? So finish that conversation.
We were talking. Oh, sorry, Savannah. Do you want?
Okay. So we were kind of talking about how the curriculum map kind of provides this sense of like consistency across all classrooms of like what's expected for the child. So if let's say a child's with one teacher in kindergarten and another student is in kindergarten as well, but with a different teacher, are they learning the same things at the same time with the same approach? And if they were to go like onto first grade, second grade, or even move to like a different town, are they getting that consistent education and the background across all of it, all the grades and stuff?
So if I moved from school to school, but also if I want to look backwards and say, did we get everything we were supposed to get in first grade, right? Or in kindergarten, looking on to first grade, and the first grade teacher can look back and go, Did they? I mean, they don't seem to know all their letters. Were they supposed to know all their letters coming out of kindergarten? And you can look and see if they were or not, right? Or Rada, what's some concept that comes up in your classroom where you want to be able to go like, didn't you guys have this already? You want to be able to go back to some other teacher and say, did you teach that last year?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the maps are good, but it really depends on how much collaboration you have between the teachers. Just because sometimes some teachers like to go out of order, and that's when the answer to number 4 comes up. It's just it doesn't really pan out the way it's supposed to. One teacher's doing unit 3 at the moment, the other one's doing unit 7. And sometimes it works, depending on the subject. It's not a problem if you go out of order, but the problem then becomes, okay, you were supposed to be on unit 3, you're doing unit 7. The student just took the test for unit 3, and it's just, and then those things come up and, PLCs and everything else, and it's like, why are you on that unit? So it really all depends on how your school is run and the organization they have, so that it actually works correctly.
Right.
I feel like going off of that, I feel like you can even relate that not even just to like grade school, but like college too, when you take prerequisite courses to other classes. Like if one teacher doesn't teach how the next teacher you're going to have does everything, like that can also kind of get in your way.
Right.
And you're expected to know certain information, but you weren't taught it.
Right. So that's somebody going off the map, right?
Yeah.
Going on some other trail. Like, man, I had an interesting trip along that trail, but like, did you see that waterfall? No. Well, I kind of need you to know about waterfalls by the time you get up here, because we're getting in the canoe, and if you don't know where that waterfall is, we have a problem, right? I think in my experience too, some of the people who are best supported by curriculum maps are new teachers, right? Like, because let's be honest, you get your teacher training here at Fairleigh or whatever, but you don't get the in-depth. You saw how every one of the curriculum maps had to be 40 pages, right? Right. Was anybody surprised by that length and detail that you saw there? You're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in this school. And Gerardo, you probably looked at it and go, yep, there's a lot, but there's a lot that's not on this map too, right? That you're living every single day, right? So you can imagine how overwhelmed the new teacher is, right? And having that map can be a really helpful thing. It can be like that map. Okay, so here's where I've got to get to this point by Christmas, and then I've got to get to this point by spring break, right? And it really does help you see it. It's also helpful, as a couple people mentioned, for subs coming in, right? Here's where we should be. Although, a teacher should be writing plans very specifically for a sub when they're out, right? To say, here's what you're going to be doing today. But there's a flip side to that, which you may hear a lot of teachers talk about, which is there's a tremendous amount of pressure to stay on that path, on that pace, right? And there's a lot of people who find that the reality of teaching this in the classroom day by day does not fit with what somebody thought could be taught. Like, I see Gerardo like, you want to talk a little bit about that? You've had some experience with that, right? Go ahead, tell us a little bit more about that.
So, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, just because at school I'm at, I've been there for 4 years, and we've had at least 2 new teachers in the science department every single year. And they have actually left the profession the first year because, well, first of all, yes, the maps are very helpful and they're great, especially the ones in Newark. I mean, they're a lot more detailed than the ones that Hackensack schools are. But I mean, people just don't realize that it's not the way it used to be. It's not the teacher does kind of whatever the teacher thinks is best. It's just, you're on a timeline here. You have to cover this. You have to cover it this way. especially because New Jersey has other standards that you have to use. So it is a lot of pressure, and the timelines aren't just there for show. I mean, if you're not on Unit 3 at the moment, that's an issue. So it's, yeah, there's a lot of pressure behind the maps themselves.
There is, and there's a lot of folks who, you know, again, jumping back to our opening when you guys talked about hiking, right, is people need different supports, right? And somebody said, well, you know, we may not all get to the summit at the same moment. That is not what's assumed by a curriculum map. The curriculum map presumes everybody's getting to June by June, right? And especially teachers in the lower grades will find that the expectations seem way out of whack with what can really be done with their kids in that amount of time. It's interesting, Brittany, you looked at kindergarten. Anybody else look at kindergarten? Savannah looked at kindergarten, sorry, Brittany did. Savannah and Courtney did. Tell us a little bit about what you saw in the kindergarten curriculum.
So I looked at kindergarten. It was mostly K through 2 for art, so it was a little bit different. But it was mostly just like developing basic skills, and it focused a lot on social emotional aspects of the curriculum, which I thought was interesting too. So I don't know if that carries over to like the core subjects like science, math, and English.
So what was the subject name that you were looking at?
Oh, art.
Art. I'm sorry. Yes. Mm-hmm. And Savannah, you look at math, right?
I looked at the math. Yes.
Okay.
I found that they really broke it down, and kind of, especially as it goes further along, it's a lot more than I would have thought would be taught at kindergarten. So I thought that was good to like look at. They teach a lot of the basic skills, and then already are starting to build upon it pretty early.
Yeah, there's a lot of early childhood theory that thinks that kids really just need to be playing, right? And they can be playing with things that involve math concepts, right? And they can be playing things that involve linguistic concepts. But the fundamental work of a 5-year-old is to play. And in order to deliver the curriculum map that you saw, takes a lot of direct instruction. Like that, they're not going to access all that content just through play. It can't happen. And so the backward pressure from high school, if this is where we want kids to be by graduation, college and career ready, like we talked about last time, right? Then here's where they need to be by their junior year, sophomore, bang, 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 it keeps backing all the way down. Where kindergarten isn't kindergarten anymore. Like kindergarten is first grade now, right? And and there's a similar pressure, and there's I think a genuine question to be raised about whether it remains developmentally appropriate, right? The way the curriculum is written, because there's just so much content, there's just so much to know, we'll get into your next set of readings. We'll get into the kinds of alignment that you guys were starting to talk about. You started talking about kindergarten alignment, from kindergarten to kindergarten to kindergarten, right? Or third grade to third grade to third grade, or right? That's what we call horizontal alignment. We're also going to start looking at vertical alignment, so that if I'm teaching fourth grade, I know what happened in third, second, first, and kindergarten to know if my kids are ready for fourth, right? And I know what to be preparing them for fifth and on, right? That's the kind of vertical alignment and making sure that we're, so that's what you'll be reading about next. And those kind of conversations are really, really interesting. They're really good professional development conversations. You guys did a very nice job in that. The one thing that I think I would highlight in terms of the possible unintended negative consequences of this is that pressure, right, is really intense. People feel that really strongly. And when those documents get used as instruments of control rather than support, it's a whole other beast. why are you not on Unit 4? Right? That's a whole different question than how can I help you, right, get into it. And tell me about your choice not to be in Unit 4, because I'm going to assume you know what you're doing in the classroom. If not, I'll help you, with what you want help with. But those are whole different conversations. And there's a lot of abusing of these maps, right? To say, to be pacing guides that are almost punishing in that way. So that's something for us to be aware of. And I think as you all who are headed off to be psychologists also can be aware of, right? That there are ways to use those things to think about differentiating the curriculum, right? Somebody was pointing out that there were good resources in the Hackensack guides for how you could differentiate. But it's also really helpful to know vertically, where a kid ought to be, right? And where they could be, and what would we be actually be dropping back to if we need to drop back to earlier curriculum. So, all right, very helpful. It is 7:21. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 7:31. And at 7:31, we'll dive into, I'll share with you some samples for that controversy assignment, right? So you can see how other people have done it in the past. All right, take 10. I'll see you back here in a little bit. All right. Everybody's coming back. We'll give folks another minute to show up. All right. So I have examples to share with you of two different briefings that folks have done in previous years, okay, around controversial curriculum issues, curriculum areas. One of them is done pretty well. The other one is done not quite as well. So you get a comparison. I will put both of these PowerPoints up as samples, okay, with the assignment so you can take a look at them, right? Do not just model what you're doing on what they've done, but look at them alongside the rubric and see what ideas you might want to borrow. As you know, from being a student for, you guys are professional students. You've been at this for a long time. You're very good at it. And you may have had to give presentations in your classes too. What I'm going to share with you is just the slideshow. It's not the actual presentation, right? It's a tool of the presentation. So I can only show you an artifact of it. I'm not actually sharing with you what they did. Am I making sense to you? Okay. You're going to be doing this in a small room, a small Zoom room the next time we get together, okay? By the way, I will note for the 16th that there are still 4 slots available, okay? 11 of the slots are taken, so if you haven't signed up, there's still 4 slots available. So go to that Doodle poll and you can get your time.
Can you repost the link? Just because I know I signed up, but I just can't figure out how to get back to the link.
It is I'll show you where it is on Blackboard. Hold on one sec.
Thank you.
Let's pause the recording for a second while I do that. So let me show you these two. The first slideshow, and I'm not going to do it in detail, but I'll share it with you. It was around the overuse of assessments, right? Because I'm sure you've heard about that for years, right? Too much testing going on. So this person chose to look at that. So I will share that with you. Of course, I've made her name anonymous, okay? She shared a video with us on which countries have the best education. And as you can probably tell from her next question, we didn't fare so well in that comparison, right? So she asked the group, why do you think we're so behind? How many tests do you give in a year? So she was pitching this to teachers, right? What kind of tests do you give? How many grade levels take state tests in your school? Okay. She was comparing and contrasting the U.S. to higher performing countries and the kinds of tests they give. She talked about the kind of instruction that goes along with that. So, and she tells us what's at stake, right? If we're raised at the top, we're actually at 26th in the world. We've lost economic output, etc. She gives us the site, of course. And she asks an open question, right? How can we fix that? Finland, which turns out to be at the top. She gives us an example about Finland. So she solicits ideas here, right? And then she checks it against the best practices. Right? So what do you guys think? Okay, well now here's what best practice shows us. Okay, here's the best practice. Okay, some really helpful quotes here. And she gives us some alternate ways of assessing what our kids know and can do. Okay. Using cell phones and clickers is another way, right? So she gives us several of those. She explains them to us. What would be more equitable? She gives us some samples. In the longer term, the most productive strategy is to give students ability to give themselves feedback, right? So what she's getting at here is that one of the biggest problems with assessments is that they're done to students, not for them and with them, right? It doesn't really help the students. It's giving all this information about the students to the teachers, and the kids rarely get any of it in any kind of useful way. So that's kind of a big highlight, right? Whoops, sorry. Good ways to do assessment. So it's been said, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, right? When teachers come home exhausted and the kids run out of school all energetic and excited, people will say, that workload is backwards. Those kids should be coming out of school exhausted. The kid, right? Teachers are working hard, right? And the kids are not. And this is one of those big pieces, right? Who's actually getting that feedback? Who's actually working with it? And then she gave us, a lesson to assess, right? And some ideas about it. And then there's her resources. So that was a particularly strong, okay? Let me share with you another. Let me share. This was on kids being allowed to choose courses. Not quite as strong as the other, I'll be frank. Okay. What is it? Okay, it's also called course access. It's allowing kids to take courses elsewhere. Gerardo, I don't know, do you guys do dual enrollment or any of that sort of stuff with any colleges in the area?
Yeah, we do some with NJIT. We also do with the local community college and also with Rutgers Newark.
Okay, so there you go. So kids can get dual credit courses in both high school and college. She takes us through the pros, cons. In this case, she was looking at this was coming at it from the point of view of philosophy. So so when you read that earliest piece about the very first chapter you read this semester about what is curriculum and why do we think about it, she was putting it through that lens, which I thought was kind of interesting and kind of helpful. Okay. And then take us back to some big questions, right? Should course choice money be used to allow remediation and or credit recovery, or should it only be used for advancement? But it's not clear that we've had a lot of backup for that question, right? She hasn't really led us to consider that question especially well yet. Here's another question. If your school decided to use state funding. So she's coming at this from a whole vouchers point of view, and why that's controversial. It's curriculum that has financial implications also. Okay, should teachers be required to hold a master's degree? So she's kind of getting into these ancillary issues, which are interesting, but it's not clear that she built us up to be able to answer these questions well. And she leads us through a series of those, and then we have her resources. Okay. So those are two kind of examples. I'll put them up for you. You do not have to use a PowerPoint at all, right? But in this medium, it can be fairly helpful. That or a Prezi or a Keynote. Anything that you can see on your screen, you can share with us on our screen. Okay. I would encourage you, if you haven't already done it, to download the Zoom app onto your device. Okay. Some of you may be doing Zoom in the browser. I think it's easier to share screens if you're using the app for talking to us and then sharing the screen elsewhere. I just think it might be. You can, we'll see how it goes, but that's my advice for using Zoom. Okay. And if you need to, in the same screen that I just shared with you a minute ago about where to find the doodle poll, there's also links to the Zoom support page, so you can just kind of go through that if you want to. If you're not familiar with Zoom yet and how to do sharing of screens and that sort of stuff. Okay. I'll explain the routine the next time we meet, but just if you want to practice ahead of time, I think that'd be a good idea. I would certainly practice your timing, okay? Because we're going to be kind of on a hard stop here, right? Because we need to make sure that everybody gets space. I had to break people up into rooms to begin with just to make sure we had enough time. But you got to respect everybody's time, and really, so do practice, right? If you've got a roommate or a friend or family member, all the better. Practice with them, or practice in front of the mirror, something like that. One hint: if you're going to use video, okay, that takes time. It takes time, so just think about that. Okay, you certainly are welcome to use it if you want, but just figure in the time. I've found over the years a lot of people don't really calculate for how much time it's going to take in their presentation. Okay, so that's important. Any questions about all that? Yeah, Eunice.
So this is an individual work assignment, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Also, might be a stupid question, but the syllabus up on Blackboard right now, is that the most recent one?
Is there a typo in it, maybe?
No, because I guess I downloaded a syllabus like from earlier in the semester, and the dates are different. So I thought the current controversies assignment is due next week.
Yeah, I want you to send it in, but you're going to be presenting it on the 16th.
Okay.
Right? Let me just double check that. Hold on. Yeah, you're going to be presenting them on the 16th. Okay. Nope, that's it. That's the 16th. So okay. I'll make sure that the one I'm looking at is the one that's up there. Okay.
Okay.
Because maybe I might have uploaded a folder. I would, yeah. So that's that piece. So thank you for that. You'll also see the rubric up there. Okay. So what you might find helpful is to go through those two examples and see how you would grade them with the rubric. Okay. Neither one of them is perfect, right? But you can match them to that rubric and see how it looks. Okay. One of them is stronger than the other, but neither one is perfect. Any other questions about it? As I said before, you're welcome to use any of the subjects that are listed in the syllabus, but you can also choose others. one of the ones I just heard about, actually, again today. You all know the 1619 project that the New York Times is doing? Anybody know about that? It really talks about enslavement and the history of this country as starting in 1619, when enslavement really is initiated in this continent. And that is really the founding moment of this country. And so there's some really interesting talk around the ways in which enslavement has been taught differently in different places. And I just heard a really interesting discussion of that on public radio on WNYC this morning on the Brian Lehrer show. So if anybody wanted to kind of go look at that as a starting point, but there's so many things that are really interesting out there. Like we were talking about in our earlier discussion, parents want to know what's going on in class, right? And folks want to know. So what are we actually teaching, right? This is one of our most important public institutions. That's one of the things that's so cool about public education, is everybody has access to that information, right? And they can know, and they can come in and make us think about it and try to change it. It's very cool. It's really kind of democracy in action. I myself have been part of a committee that reviewed a book that everybody objected to. They didn't want it in the high school library. It was, you remember Precious? Remember that story about the abused teenager that became a movie after that? Well, the language and so forth and the images in that book were so powerful that there were some folks who were like, yeah, this does not belong in the school library. And so we went through a pretty long process, this committee of a whole bunch of stakeholders reading that book and coming to some conclusions about it, and where does it fit in our curriculum and all that kind of stuff. So there's so many things that are open to you. Knock yourselves out. You'll have no trouble finding something. Sure. If you're not sure if it's an appropriate topic that you want to explore, just hit me up with an email, and I'll we can talk about it. Okay. So looking forward. Previewing a little bit here. All right, so here's what's coming up. Like we mentioned in our discussion earlier, your next readings are going to be about curriculum alignment, both horizontal and vertical. Okay. Later on in the semester, we'll talk around how a school actually tries to guarantee or work around the issues with curriculum alignment, vertically and horizontally. But we hinted at that in our discussion tonight, but you'll get a little bit more into that with these readings of why does that even matter. I will just tell you, as a personal reflection, I was that teacher for a long time. It was like, I know what to do. I'm teaching. I'm good. Leave me alone. Right? And when I got to be a principal, I was much more concerned about it. Right? Much more concerned that kids have a logical path going from one classroom to the next classroom to the next through the school, that it wasn't sort of helter-skelter. So curriculum mapping and alignment became much more important to me. And I looked back and I recognized, you know what? I actually was kind of worried about that myself as a teacher, but I didn't really recognize why, right? But I was worried about what was going to happen to my kids next year, and were they going to be cherished as much as I cherished them and challenged as much as I challenged them. And I realized that was a version of worrying about curriculum. So that's one piece. The next thing is I'm going to ask you to go up on Flipgrid, and I will expand the time a little bit because I know you guys found it a little bit challenging to get everything done in that short time frame. But having read the readings that are coming up by the 2nd, I think, by next week. Double check that. So this week. Yeah, and about pacing guides and so forth. So ask you to reflect on this conversation and the things that you've been reading for weeks 5 and 6. I would like to encourage you over spring break to not work on stuff for this class. I'm sure you all are busy enough. You're doing great work. You're working hard. And I would encourage you to just take a break for a little bit, right? Because you got plenty going on, right? So think about that. Finally, as our closing tonight, I would like to ask you to take a poll, okay? A poll, and it's going to be coming to you in a minute, about how we're doing with the working agreements. I chose, there's several of them that are really just from, that are really mostly about what I do, right? Posting the documents and all that kind of stuff. But there's a series of them. There's 5 of them really that are for all of us. And so I'm going to ask you for each one of them to just say, how are you doing individually, right? And how are we all doing collectively, right? So for each one you're going to get, and it's just very simple, poor, fair, good, or excellent, right? Just simple. But this gives us some, it's anonymous feedback, but I'd like to get some sense of how we're all doing, okay? Okay, so here it comes, coming at you. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna collate those results, and I'll share them with you when we open our next class. Okay, we'll just talk about it. That's all I got for tonight. Anybody have any closing questions or comments? Yes, Brittany.
You said you extended the Flipgrid from 90 seconds. What is it now? Just, I don't know if you missed that.
I was gonna go with like 2 minutes, 2.5. What would you guys like? What seems reasonable?
Good.
2 is good. All right, let's try 2. All right, and I gotta set up a new grid for that discussion. Okay, I'll let you know when it's up. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a nice couple. Yeah, I'll see you soon. All right. Bye bye.